Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. I'm Rusty. She's Heather. And we're the Bryants. I don't really know
Let's
why.
not repeat that every time.
I don't know why I did that. But, yep, we're here to talk about marriage and all things related to marriage. And we are in a little bit of a series. You know, I just noticed this, that if people are watching us on YouTube, they're probably like, oh, she looks so cute, and look at him.
No, that's not true. If they're watching us on YouTube, they're going, she wore that same shirt last week.
Well, it's because you went to a different church,
did.
and you probably were like, oh, I'm going to wear this because I
Yeah.
went to a different church today.
I did. And then I was like, oh, no, I wore this last week. It
Well, I
doesn't even
didn't,
matter.
but I'm just...
But you know what else? We look like Christmas.
Yeah, we do.
Red and green. Little Ole Miss action.
Ole Miss. Wait, hotty toddy. Did you say Ole Miss? Yes, you said Ole Miss. Do we need to talk about it? No, we won't. But, man.
Well, if we're going to talk about Ole Miss, we're going to talk about Alabama.
Hey,
because
well,
we crushed it this weekend.
We crushed it, too. Who knows
That's what
when
I meant. We. Like,
Yes.
our two teams.
I know, and we weren't even together to be able to watch and celebrate together yesterday. But the AP rankings came out today. Your team is number 9. My
Yeah,
team
we
is
are.
number 10.
Yeah, we are.
And yeah, so who knows when you're listening to this?
That's
but right
right.
now, it's a happy day in the Bryant household.
Yeah, it is. Or they could be listening to this weeks from now, and they're going to be like, "Oh, look, they didn't even know Alabama was going to be the national champions."
No, they didn't even know they were going to meet in the playoffs, and Ole Miss was going to beat them.
Is that how it's going to go?
Y'all,
We'll
we
see.
talked about incompatibility, and I mean, here we go. Like, it's coming to a head. We just never know.
Just never know.
Well,
And
actually,
I'll always pull for Ole Miss unless they're playing Alabama, and you pull for Alabama unless they're playing for Ole Miss.
Yep.
It's a sweet thing we have going.
it is. That's how
And we
marriage.
didn't even have to play each other this year.
Nope,
Do-do-do.
not yet.
Yeah.
But that's how marriage works. So,
Yep.
But hey, we just said the incompatibility. If you've not listened to that one, it was a couple of weeks ago. And we're doing this little series. It's basically, the series is, we made a list recently of words that we feel like every marriage feels at some point. And so we've gone through a list of words already, and we're going to do another one today.
And I think that all of these words are words that everybody feels eventually. Maybe not to the extreme that others feel.
Oh, sure.
You know, I mean, like...
Well, last week was hopeless.
Yeah. And so if you've just gone through some type of betrayal, then you probably feel a significant amount of hopeless. But then you may just be in a hard season of marriage, and you just are like, gosh, is this ever going to end? Like, hopeless. And so there's different levels of these words that we've gone through. And to be honest, we didn't really even know this was going to be a series.
No.
And then we just really have felt really passionately about some of these words, and just giving people hope that they're not the only ones that have felt that way or that will feel this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's our word today?
Do you not know what it
I
is?
do. Jerk.
Are you just trying to? You're just trying to act. I mean, hey, let's act like this is a podcast that is scripted or something. Not scripted. Not scripted.
Not scripted. No.
This is not scripted. We just know what the word is.
We do know what the word is. And I'm really excited about this word because we talk about it a lot in marriage coaching. And not only that, but I had to learn what this word meant.
Well, it's also, I think it's a word that we throw it around in marriage coaching, and I'm not sure people really always understand it, and we have to really explain it because basically the word is unsafe, and you may have felt unsafe in your marriage. Now, we're not talking about
Physical.
I feel like I'm going to be hurt.
That's right. Like physically hurt.
Physically hurt.
Yeah.
And obviously, if that is something that you're going through, then you need to really get help, and you should never feel physically unsafe in your marriage.
If you were looking through marriage topics or podcast topics, and you got highlighted, or this one got highlighted because you're like,
good.
oh, I don't feel safe in my marriage, and you're listening to this, if you feel like you are in an abusive relationship, or that your husband or I guess it could be wife,
Sure.
may hurt you, this is not what we're talking about. You need to get professional help for
Yep.
that.
Yep, definitely. And we would, we would never encourage anyone to
Staying.
stay in an abusive relationship
Yep.
like that. So, just to get that off right at the beginning, because that's not the unsafe that we're talking about. We're actually talking about really it's emotional safetiness, and it's being it's almost. What we're really going to talk about a lot is communication and just being a safe place for your spouse to open up and be vulnerable and to communicate. And so, this is one of those things that we talk about a lot in marriages because when people come to us and tell us that they're having communication problems, it almost always is rooted in this, that one spouse or the other or both will feel like their spouse is not a safe place. And so they refuse to communicate. They refuse to connect emotionally. And I think it even leads to the refusal for physical connection a lot of times because it all stems from you are not a safe place.
Yeah. But even, Rusty, as you're saying that, I think that there's some people that are like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean, a safe place? And so if you're thinking, I don't even know if this podcast is for me to listen to today. If you have ever felt like, I just don't think I can go to him and talk to him about this, that means he's not a safe place.
Yeah.
If you say, I don't think that she would understand what I mean when I say this, that means you're not a safe place. So there's not many couples out there that don't need to hear this because I think that this is probably one of the biggest communication, not problems, but communication walls.
Barriers.
Yeah, barriers that is put up. Like, I'm just not going to talk to him about that anymore because last time I did, he got upset, or last time he made me feel bad, or last time he made me feel stupid, or, all of those things. And that's what we mean by a safe place.
Well, I was listening to a podcast recently, and I'm pretty sure this was an interview that was taking place on Focus on the Family, which we love the marriage material that Focus on the Family does. That's actually who our marriage intensive was through, sort of, ish, several years ago. And so we're really big believers in the stuff that they do on the marriage side of things. And so, but I heard actually they were talking about safety and in marriage, and whoever they were interviewing actually gave this. I mean, I guess it's sort of like a definition, but I loved it. I wrote it down. And I wrote it word for word. So I want to read it because I think it'll make sense and help to explain what we mean. But it says, safety in marriage means the ability to be vulnerable. That's the main point. It's the ability to be vulnerable. It is revealing who you are on the inside while knowing that you are going to be loved, accepted, valued, honored, and respected. I mean, that's a good word. That is a great definition of what safety in marriage is.
Yeah.
All of those things just wrapped up into one definition.
Because ultimately, I think that we were designed to only feel 100% safe in all of those words. If I had my glasses, I would read them. But all of those words, I feel like we are designed that only God can make us feel safe, 100% safe in all of those areas. But outside of that relationship with the Lord, your relationship with your spouse is supposed to be the one place where you feel safety. And if you've put up a wall or barrier because you don't feel one of those things and you go to somebody else instead, then that's a problem. So you need to look at why, and I don't mean just an inappropriate relationship. I'm talking about a parent, or if you run to your mom instead, or if you run to your best friend instead, because they provide these words for you, then you need to make sure that you figure out why you and your spouse don't have that kind of safety in your relationship and in communication.
Yeah, I mean, because it's just like what you said. Your spouse should be the place and the person that you are most vulnerable with. I mean, in reality, your spouse should really know everything, like the deepest, darkest. I mean, not even the deepest, darkest. The good, the bad, the ugly, all
That's
of
right.
it. And I mean, I think that's what this is actually saying. It's revealing who you are on the inside, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but knowing that you're still going to be loved, accepted, valued, honored, and respected.
Yep.
And when your spouse thinks highly of you, even knowing all of your warts, and why did you look at me funny when I said warts?
I don't
That's
know.
that's a real phrase. I didn't
Is
just
it?
make that up. Yes. While knowing all of your bad things, let's just say it that way. But that's something that you can really be proud of.
Absolutely.
And I think about how there's so many times that I tell people in marriage coaching that I trust you more than anybody in the world. And being able to say that after what you did, that really says a lot. And so that's me also not just knowing what you did, but knowing who you are every single day. Because I do know you more and better than anybody else. And so being able to say that and really honestly say I trust you more than anybody else, that just says a lot.
Yeah.
So your spouse knowing everything about you and still loving, accepting you and all that.
Well, and I think about not only what I did, but also the things that we've walked through together, like even going through breast cancer. I had to go through some pretty nasty things. Drains and sickness and hair falling out. And some really, that if you could have been like, oh my gosh, that's gross. And like, I get it. A lot of it was, but you used it as an opportunity to just fall in love with me more. To be like, it's the true definition of what you say in sickness and in health, and so you're going to go through hard times, and you're going to go through yucky times, and you're going to go through, I just think that if you choose to use every season and every opportunity and every moment to draw closer to your spouse and not see it as gross or yuck or I wish we could just skip past this, but to really step in and say, the person that I'm supposed to love most and be vulnerable with the most, and still be able to have all of those things, to feel valued and to feel loved through that.
So the interview that I was listening to, they named a couple of things that cause a marriage to feel unsafe. And they mentioned criticism as being one of the number one ways that causes a spouse to feel unsafe. And they mentioned dismissing your spouse's feelings. And so I just started thinking, like, those are two great ones, but when we talk about safety, I don't know that we necessarily even bring those two things up. So it made me think that there's so many things that can make you feel unsafe or make your spouse feel unsafe if you are causing them to feel unsafe. It may be criticism. It may be that you dismiss their feelings. There's a lot of things that it could be. So maybe we could just talk about a few of those things and some of the stuff that makes you feel unsafe emotionally and connecting with your spouse.
Well, can we bounce off those two first?
Yeah.
So criticism, I think, is a big one because you can speak so negatively towards your spouse and about your spouse. And guys, in public, do not say anything negative about your spouse. Now, if you're sitting with a mentor and you're talking about hard stuff and that's different.
Doing marriage coaching.
Yeah. But don't talk publicly negatively about them, especially jokingly, like it's going to be funny. Don't poke fun at them.
Yep.
Do not do that, because that is, I see why they say that's the number one reason to make you feel unsafe, because it's like, okay, you're making fun of me or you're talking bad about me. And so you're not my person if you're
Mhm.
going to do that.
There's not very many places that really it's okay to do that. I
No.
mean, you know,
No.
and like really it's in a situation where you're trying to get some help and you need to be able to share and share openly.
Sure.
It's kind of like the whole, you know, hey, if you're having trouble getting your spouse to go to counseling with you, then you can just go say, hey, I'm going to a counselor to talk about you. So if you
Mhm.
want to go and be there, why don't you come with me?
Yeah. Yeah. And defend
And
yourself.
defend yourself. Yeah. But I mean, it does make me think that there are very few and far between circumstances and situations, environments where you should say anything critical
Sure.
about your spouse.
Absolutely.
Now, there are times to have discussion with your spouse one-on-one about, I mean, the constructive criticism thing. You know, I mean, yes, we're holding each other accountable to things, and there's sometimes that we have to discuss things, but like being just critical of somebody and criticizing them, you know, in public or in front of anybody, yeah, I mean, that is you're not a safe place if
Yep.
you're going that
Not
road.
okay.
Did you want to bounce off the other one?
I do. What is it?
Maybe you don't want to.
No, I do. I'm gonna
It's
have
okay.
to.
I'll
You're
tell
making
you.
me put
No,
on
no,
my
no.
glasses.
You don't have to put on your
Okay.
glasses. I got you.
Okay.
Dismissing your spouse's feelings.
Okay. I actually love this one because I feel like that a lot of people, and I think I was one of them for a while, is I thought that we had to understand each other's feelings
Mm.
to validate them. And so if I didn't understand why you felt some way, I would just dismiss it because I'm like, I don't understand why you feel that way. That's so dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Where there are times that I have feelings that you may not understand, but you can say, I understand that you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I understand why you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand that that's how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand that those are your feelings. And I think that is one of the things that has helped me so much in communicating with you and being a safe place for you. Is there's sometimes that you explain why you feel a certain way. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get that at all because you're male. Probably.
Mm-hmm.
And, or I don't understand how you got to the point that you got there. But I will very easily say, that, yeah, like I understand that you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's validating to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to say, yeah, I don't understand why you feel
Right.
that way, but I
just-
understand that you feel that way.
Yeah, I'm really
Like,
glad you said that
like,
because I was
don't be
just
a
thinking.
smart
Yeah.
aleck.
Yeah.
Like it's okay if you don't understand why your spouse feels a certain
Mhm.
way. You just have to know that they do.
But and that's the whole point about being a safe place, because if I come to you and I share with you some feeling that I have and you either dismiss it or even, I mean, a lot of times in dismissing it, you also become critical of it. So it goes back to the whole criticism
Yeah.
thing. But if I know that I'm coming to you and you accept what I'm saying, that you really listen to it and you hear it and then you validate, yes, I feel that way, well then, yeah, I'm going to come back and talk to you about the next thing.
Sure.
But if I'm shot down and it doesn't, and I walk away that this is not a safe place for me to share those feelings, I guess. Well, I'm either going to find somebody else that I can share them to, or I'm just going to bottle them up and just let it become something bitter inside of me.
Right.
And so that's why the value of just being this safe place for your spouse. And, we talk a lot to couples about how, and we've shared this on our podcast before, but for a long time in our marriage, we weren't safe for each other, really, because when you would come to me, instead of really just listening to you, I just was always like I had to fix it. I wanted to fix whatever was wrong with you because I thought that was my job as a husband, and I needed to make make everything go away, make everything better, and that's impossible in a lot of circumstances. And a lot of the times I had to also understand that you weren't telling me things every time so that I would fix them. And so that became taxing on you to know that, well, if I go and tell him, he's just going
Right.
to come up with this list of solutions, and most of them I've probably already tried. And so,
Yeah, and I would feel like I'm going to be a burden to him
yeah,
because that's going to give him one more thing to try to solve.
yep, yep,
And that's not what I needed.
hmm
I just needed you to listen
yeah.
and validate how I was feeling.
And so, like I think a lot of people might think, well, me trying to fix and help my spouse's problem, how does that make me an unsafe place? Well, it just becomes exhausting. It becomes an exhausting thing to open up emotionally. When I know that once I open up emotionally to you, then all of a sudden it becomes, well, why don't you do this, 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 and this? Well, I don't need all of that. I just need you. And there's a very big difference. And then on the flip side of it, the reason why I would never go to you is because you just couldn't listen. Like, you were just automatically, we've said this a million times, but you were already thinking about your response and how you were going to flip it back on me, or how you were going to lost my train of thought.
No, I know what I would do. You want me to
Yeah,
tell you
you could
what I
tell.
would do? I would always make it your fault, or I would make you feel stupid that you felt that way. I would be like, why? I mean, why do you feel that way? That's so dumb. Like, I could not ever just listen to your heart and validate what you were feeling. And so, and I would turn around and make it, if you came to me about something that was probably my fault in a way that I hurt you, I would always turn it around and make it your
You
fault.
would defend yourself.
I would defend myself
Yeah.
and make it your fault.
That's the word I was looking for, was defend.
Defensive. But I can also remember times that you would come and maybe somebody else had hurt you, and I can remember just going, like, that's so dumb. Like, why did that bother you?
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what I thought about it. The point is, it bothered you, and I should have been supportive in that and saying, God, I'm sorry that hurt, So those are two ways that I was definitely not a safe place for you to come and talk to. But yeah, when it was about me, I got defensive and made it about you.
Well, I think that a huge part of this, and so people are going, well, how do we start this? How do we practice this? And like, the easy answer to that is that you listen more than you talk. Like, that seems really simple, but I think a lot of us have a really hard time with that.
Yeah.
And in most relationships, you've got one that's like the dominant talker and the dominant feelings person and emotions, and then you've got one that never really gets a chance to, because the other one just dominates it all. And so if you're that person that's like, oh, my spouse won't ever open up to me, won't ever talk to me, well, it might be because you don't give them a chance to.
Because you never shut up.
Yeah. And like, that's a real thing.
Sure.
And so you have to practice, like, genuinely work at, if my spouse is talking to me, I am going to give them every bit of attention that I have. Look them in the eyes. Put your phone away. Listen. Don't think about what you're going to say when they're done. You are just genuinely feeling everything that they're telling you. That's how you get them to come back and do it again, because they want to come to a safe place, and that's how you let them know that you're a safe place.
Yeah. And it's also being very comfortable in telling your spouse what you need from them as they listen. Like, it's okay to go in and say, hey, I really don't need you to fix this. I just want you to listen. Or you can say, hey, this really hurt. Not something you did, but I had this happen today that hurt me, and I really need you to tell me what you would do, or maybe guide me through.
Give me some suggestions.
Yeah, some suggestions of how I should handle it. And so you're going into it, and they know the expectation, because there are times where I tell you something that happened at work where I just need you to go, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
But then there's times that I'm like, I need to do something about this, and I don't know what. What do you think? And so it's giving you the heads up at the very beginning of how you can be a safe place for me to share.
Yeah, no, I love it, and like I said, it all kind of stems from you listening way more than you talk, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole use the use the two ears. That's why we got two ears and one
Yep.
mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But also something that I've heard you really talk about more recently when we've started talking with couples that we've been doing coaching with is I would say that for most of the couples that we deal with, or just most couples in general, the female has strong emotions, much more strong
Mm-hmm.
emotions, and are able to express those
Mm-hmm.
in much easier ways than males. That's not the case for everybody. We get it. There are lots of women out there that will clam up and
Yeah.
not say anything. We get it. But for a lot of you, and most of the people we deal with, that's the big communication gap is, well, my husband won't communicate with me, and they won't. Well, what we have also come to realize is that a lot of women dominate the area of emotional
Mm-hmm.
intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't give their spouse even an opportunity because your spouse is a little bit scared of how dominant that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way that you've been talking with women recently about being more gentle. Like
Mm-hmm.
that word that you use, it's not meek, and it's not even,
Passive.
yeah, or even,
Mm-hmm.
I know submissive is a biblical
Mm-hmm.
word, but so many women are turned off by that. But it's not even that, it's just being a more gentle wife, and on an emotional level.
Right.
And I mean, you may can explain that a little bit better of what you
Yeah.
mean when,
Well, I mean, I think it all comes from the Proverbs 31 woman and how God has designed us to be as women that honor God with our words, our bodies, and our actions. And one of the things that he says in there is to be gentle. And I love that word because it doesn't give um the image of being a doormat,
mm-hmm,
it and letting somebody run all over you. It's just being kind and gentle with your words and being, because I was definitely that loud, um dominant,
fierce,
fierce. That's the
strong,
word.
fierce, yeah.
I was gonna say ferocious. I was trying to think of that F word. Not ferocious, fierce, woman. And I mean, I think there's a time and a place for that. Like when I'm battling for my kids, that comes out.
Yeah, mama bear.
That's right. That's right. But to my husband, that came out a lot, and I wasn't a gentle, soft spoken. I'm just trying to like safe. It's the
Yeah,
word that I can come up
even
with.
as you're describing it, what I see in you in previous years, when you were more of the dominant personality and the dominant emotional figure, is like that to me. It wasn't really showing you as being a strong woman. Like now, I see you as this like you are much more gentle in that area, and that to me it shows you as being a strong because you're in control.
Right.
Like you're in control of your
Right.
emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and you are healthy and mature enough to be able to accept my emotions and
Right.
know how to handle them in a healthy and correct way that's going to build me up and that's going to be that safe place for me. Whereas before, it was really more of a, you came across as it's all about me.
Right.
But now you seem so much more like a strong woman because of your ability to sort of rein that in as a more gentle and loving. It really comes, a lot of it is, hey, I can listen to you. Like I'm a strong woman, but I can listen to you and I can feel your feelings and your emotions, and I can validate those things, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And not that it has to affect me, or that it has to change me, or that I have to do something to try to change your emotions. It's, I'm okay and in a good enough place where I can just be here for you.
Right.
And I think that's such an important part of being a safe place in marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that if you're listening to this and you're like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm that kind of spouse. I was going to say woman, but I mean, like, there's men listening too. You have to be a safe place for your spouse to be able to come. And for women, I think we have a tendency to do everything we've already talked about, where it's, too much or too, um, trying to fix it. Although I think men try to fix it too.
Yes.
But I also think that men become an unsafe place when they get really overwhelmed by all the emotion. They're like, yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah, go tell somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know how to. Instead of being somebody who can listen, even though I know that can be challenging,
Mm-hmm.
because I have, I have definitely learned more how to rein it in and be more concise with my words.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times that I go off on something and
Mm-hmm.
you're like, that was a lot.
Yeah.
And so if the woman in your life is a lot, and if you sit down to listen, you're 45 minutes later going, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still being your spouse's person, instead of cutting them off and being like, hey, I ain't got time for this,
Yeah.
or this is too much. Maybe this is a problem your mom needs to hear,
Yeah.
something like that. But just your being a safe place can be just being available.
Well, and for the guys that are listening too, we know this in a general sense that guys are much more physically attracted and connected physically, while women are much more emotionally connected. And for some of the guys out there, you may be frustrated or thinking, well, our physical intimacy, our sex life is not good. Well, I'll tell you, it is directly related
Absolutely.
to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's related to being that safe and vulnerable place emotionally. And if you're not connecting emotionally with your spouse, then that's why you're not connecting physically with your spouse. And, this whole definition of safety, of revealing who you are and being vulnerable, the physical intimacy, there is nothing more vulnerable and open
And showing
who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not connecting emotionally, then then the physical side becomes so unsafe, and it becomes so scary, because I don't want you to see all of me. Like, I don't want you to know this most intimate part of me. If we can't be intimate in our feelings and our emotions, then I don't want to be intimate with you on a physical level either.
Right.
And so, I'm saying that because I want the guys out there to hear that these things go hand in hand, and you really can't expect one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of people out there that can say, oh man, we have our physical life, our sex life is incredible, but we have no emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't happen that way typically.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually when the emotional side is good,
And the
then
physical side.
you have a chance to have the physical side is good.
Yep.
So that's just a challenge and an encouragement to the guys, especially as you're listening. Like, this is something that's just as much of a need for your spouse, being the safe place, as the physical need might be for you, and needing that safe place for each other.
That's right. So, are you fix and put on my glasses so that I can read them?
You about to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to. Do you feel like you are loved, accepted, valued, honored, and respected, even when you are vulnerable with your spouse? And do you think your spouse feels that way? And if not, it may be because you're an unsafe place for them to talk to or
good.
to be with.
Yep. So we just challenge you this week to really do some self-reflection. There it is.
Soul searching.
Soul searching. And, you may be the one that needs to do some change in this area. I know it's really easy for us to sometimes listen to podcasts like this and say, oh, I got to send this to my wife or my husband. And, look at yourself first and see, are you being the safe place for your spouse? All right. Hey, thanks for listening again this week, guys. And we'll see you next time on the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Peace.